This is a work that will require all the help I can get, and I've already reached out, as I said, to Mark, and we will continue to start working immediately to ensure that we identify those who are like-minded and those who are aligned. It's a daunting task, so I don't think one walks into it arrogantly believing that it's just going to be a walk in the park. But I think within SARS, there are competent people that we will rely on. And of course, personally, we will also need the help and support of our families because we don't come into this world alone.
Edward Kieswetter, of course, and he is our big hitter today because he is one of the toughest jobs in the country. It will fall to him to restore a hollowed-out revenue service, which the Nugent Commissioner of Inquiry set up to look at the functioning of the institution, slated for maladministration under former SARS head Tom Moyane. The latter was fired by President Cyril Ramaphosa. His successor now joins us in the studio. Mr. Kieswetter, thank you so very much, and of course congratulations on the post. My colleague Vuyo said he wasn't sure whether he should commiserate with you or congratulate you on your job, but arguably you have one of the toughest jobs. In the clip we hear you say that it's not going to be easy, but there's lots of good men and women in the institution. What is your first to-do? What is on your first item on your to-do list when you get to SARS on the 1st of May?
Thank you. Good morning, Karima and Peter. I mean, for me, people is what matters. And it is naturally and understandable that over the past number of years, people reading about their organization in the newspapers every morning would be disheartened. They would have been demoralized. Many, in fact, have left the organization because they felt either marginalized or ostracized. And many of them are good men and women. So for me, the first and highest priority is to re-engage with the staff. And to do that frankly, openly and honestly, but also caringly, and having a real interest in their concerns. For me, that's where the work will start.
You said in your interview with my colleague Vuyo Mvoko that those who were part of the state capture project, as SARS was identified as an institution who remains, will find the organization a very unhappy place for them, despite the fact that you won't prejudge individuals. What exactly do you intend to do with those who participated in hollowing out this institution, who are now still there?
So there are a few different, what I call, categories. The first would be those who already are implicated and where processes are already in place. I will simply allow those processes to run its course, in fact, see how we can accelerate them, because having these things drawn out is unhealthy for everyone and creates uncertainty. The second is people who may not have been implicated because they've been below the radar. I intend to have frank and open conversations one-on-one with the senior leadership team, give them the opportunity for a frank engagement, take people on their word, but obviously be circumspect. And there are many things that you cannot negotiate as a leader. And one of it is to be clear where you stand on matters, and I will be very clear that where I stand on this. And secondly, to invite people to align to that. And where people then demonstrate that they either cannot or have an hidden agenda, then we deal with that consequence also very frankly and very quickly.
Peter?
You almost have a duty to. There are a lot of you now in place under the new sort of presidency. Shamila Batoyi has taken over at the NPA. You're taking over at SARS. Godfrey Lebay is at the Hawks is new, and you're all surrounded by remnants of, but at a fairly senior level. I mean, we're not talking about, a prosecutor down in Mthatha or Mkanduli or wherever it might be. It's right, it's in Pretoria. Your deputy is not your deputy, because presumably Mark Kingon will stay on, I hope. But you've got really senior people who participated in all of the nonsense at SARS around you. What advice would you give? Because you sound fairly confident about a way to get through this. neither the Hawks head nor the NPA head sound as confident as you do that they can deal with the staff matter, deal with the remnants of state capture as easily. What would you suggest? I mean, do you talk to each other? Do you have a what advice would you give them?
Absolutely. And just before you start, you know, Peter and I were chatting, as we normally do when the show opens. Natasha Marion had written a brilliant piece on the SARS strike, and I know that's not your remit, that's Mark Kinnan. But one of the placards actually said, bring Tom Moyane back. And I think that's precisely the point that Peter's talking to. You sound very confident that you'll be able to deal with people like that. Your colleagues in the other institutions don't.
Well, let me contextualize my confidence so that it also doesn't come across as arrogance. I don't underestimate the complexity and the dauntedness of the task. But, you know, for me, one must be guided by your conscience without fear or favor. And people eventually reveal their true colors. And in such instances, one must act regardless of the consequence. And even if that has, and sadly, for those of us who do take up this responsibility, sadly, it has severe consequences also on us and our families and personally. These aren't easy things. It doesn't sit on your clothes, as the old people used to say. But guided by one's conscience, do the right thing. People will reveal their colors very quickly.
Yeah.
But I did also say, you do yourself a disservice if you walk in and suspect everybody and you're prejudged everyone.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, you actually serve the purpose of those who are delinquent, those who are dishonest.
Yeah.
Because they are now just part of everyone else. And so I think one has to be discerning, one has to listen carefully, and it's probably more listening than talking at this early stage to really get to understand what is the true motive of everyone, and what is guiding them. And when that is identified, to not cower, but to put it frankly on the table and to discuss it openly and frankly within the confines of the law.
Yeah. Listen, I wanted to ask something. You know, we won't talk about last year because that was Mark's year, but he'll be reporting, I think, tomorrow.
Yes.
On the year. And he's going to report, obviously, there'll be another shortfall, around about 50 billion, 48 billion rand. What difference can SARS make, given that some of this is caused by the state of the economy? What difference can good, clever, smart, even heavy-handed collection make to that number, to that deficit?
I think, you know, we know from just international and general trends around tax compliance that at the heart of it is the culture of compliance. And understandably, we also know that during times when the Revenue Authority is distrusted, when they do not have the respect of the public, then it creates the opportunity for people either to become just slack and negligent, not necessarily willfully or with criminal intent, but there also is an element that will abuse or exploit that to their own good. And so I know from past experience that there will be taxpayers, both corporate and individuals, who will have become delinquent in this past. What SARS needs is to be plugged into the economy. It needs to be very clear about the risks. There's something in tax and revenue administration called risk profiling. And today we have, in fact, the Large Business Center, which was set up in 2004, we have advanced so much more with technology and tools in order to be able to be aware and then to be smart about who we identify and how we engage with them, and not to use a big hammer or a big stick and simply, you know, just go after everyone. I think that also does not serve the interest.
Now, of course, the appointment of you as the SARS Commissioner doesn't come without controversy. The third largest political party in the country, the EFF, is threatening court action. They've accused the process of being untransparent. They have accused yourself and Trevor Manuel of having a relationship that won't hold up to public scrutiny. Mr. Manuel has come out guns blazing, saying that he is actually challenging the EFF to bring that evidence, and is also considering, taking lawyers. Do you think that the questioning of the EFF on the way in which you were appointed puts a blur or a mark or a pall over the cleanup that you have to do, and your own personal integrity, which of course is going to be central to how you recalibrate this organization?
Karima, this role that I'm about to assume is an inordinately huge challenge. I am not going to be distracted by anything. My conscience is clear, and I will proceed to take up this role without fear and without favor.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say your conscience is clear, if you get embroiled, for example, in a legal controversy, which the EFF is going to try and do, your job is going to be far harder and much more challenging in terms of sticking to the priorities as you've identified it and as you've articulated it. How are you going to manage the noise and the substance of what you have to do, and to refer back to Peter, to not do what seemingly some of your other colleagues in other institutions is doing, to try and kind of take a political take on the matter and not proceed with the work at hand?
Karima, I am employed, I would like to believe, because I'm a professional manager. I'm not a politician. And so the point you made there about focusing on the substance of the work is what I will do. And as I said, not be swayed by the narrative or the distractions. And that is what they are intended to do. So,
it's Mark. I don't know whether you agree with me. I mean, but we owe Mark King on a debt of gratitude, don't we? I mean, because he's had to really deal at the sharp end of all the nastiness and hatefulness that's gone on at SARS. Would you want him to stay?
Absolutely. Mark and I have had conversations from the minute my appointment was announced. Mark has informed me, the minister, as well as on public record, that he intends to stay. Mark is a SARS lifer. Yeah. He has been there. In fact, he's a second generation. His father was commissioner too. And Mark is one of those people that I will rely on to be part of a team going forward.
As SARS, you can probably inflict more pain on people than the police or the Hawks or the NPA or anybody else, because you're able to just basically say, give us the money, and then if you want to argue about it later on, come to court and we'll talk about it for the next 20 years. Do you advocate does SARS have, I know this is a bit controversial, but do you have your own investigating unit? Can you have the power, do you have the structures to go out and target tax defaulters or delinquents who are basically part of criminal enterprises like Bosasa, for instance?
A few things, Peter. Firstly, our intent is not to inflict pain, but to administer the law. That's the first thing. The second thing is very important, that SARS needs good information with integrity so that it identifies and targets appropriately the taxpayers who do become delinquent or who do not fulfill the obligation. So good information, firstly. Secondly, it requires investigative capability in order to pursue and confirm whether their original theory or thesis about a particular taxpayer is confirmed. But one of the things that I will certainly put a spotlight on is an effective revenue authority has to work hand in hand with the other agents of government. And the NPA, the prosecuting and the investigative capabilities of the state, wherever they may sit, are very important capabilities of the state for the complete enforcement of the law. And so I think where that may have lapsed in the past, we will really step that up. I plan to sit down with the leaders of all of these organs of state, with the NPA and
So
others.
you plan to meet Shamila Batoy?
Absolutely. I would like to meet her even before the 1st of May.
Now, just a final question. I know that, as Peter is saying, this is Markkinen's year, he's wrapping up, but SARS is facing quite a devastating strike. If you were to give Mr. Kinnan and the union some advice, let's say, for example, you were starting tomorrow and not on the 1st of May, what would it be?
Karima, it's always unfortunate when the relationship between the employer and its staff, we tend to focus on the unions, but these aren't union members. They are firstly our employees. And it's always unfortunate when the relationship breaks down to the point, whatever the motives may be, where employees withhold their labor. So my appeal to all parties is to put aside any grandstanding, any agenda which is really not meant to focus on the substance, because nobody wins when there's a strike, not the organization, nor the people, nor the country, and to be focused on understanding each other, on listening to each other, and find a resolution sooner rather than later.
SARS new commissioner who starts on the 1st of May, Mr. Edward Kieswetter, thank you so very much. Still ahead on The Fix, we unpack the critical issue of hate speech and the building of social cohesion in society with Wits University Vice-Chancellor, Professor Adam Habib. Don't go anywhere.